Respectfully, the curriculum changes every 7 years per state, and I can validate that if need be, but I don't think you guys really want to read it.
So, Joe B., that's one part of it, but the main linchpin of where this becomes an issue is the enrollment outreach. They're not showing up to college or high school campuses in America. They're not showing up and engaging in that type of outreach by having, conversations with Department of Education heads in foreign governments the same way that they're having conversations with state governments here in America. They're not. It's the enrollment outreach that's the issue. They're selling seats abroad.
And you're not even...
Career tech is growing, and so it's going beyond college bound.
Well, let's expand Dr. Adams' point in on another part of the spider web. It used to be, and I'm going to speak up for the GED class, it used to be where we used to have shop and we used to have all these things for those children who maybe were not college ready to be part of a lot of these unions or workforces or industries or what have you. So to his credit, what he's bringing up now, if we use this as an example where we're weaponizing college, which for many people is a prereq for entry level to an interview, then where do all these other American people go? Because they're already separated from no college degree already. The shop steward and half of that stuff is gone, except in certain little counties here and there. So what is really the outcome if we were to stretch his theory all the way out? Well, that means that a lot of Americans are going to go without, and people on the outside of America who can financially pay for people to exist in these colleges will be the supreme people in 2040.
But it's not individual people that are sponsoring those F1 visas from kids outside of the country. It's foreign governments. Let's be very clear.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
The donors put up like a token quota, right? So they're like, hey, we need this many or whatever. It's interesting because I think this is coupled in with the problem of like low birth rate and competition. Something like India has more children in honor roll, like meaning they do well in school or higher than we have people. And so I think there's something to be said about abandoning the children of America in the face of scouting for talent elsewhere. So maybe it makes sense at a national level, but at a local level, it's very vicious and unfair.
That's why when he asked me, was it about critical thinking or just reciting, a lot of it's just reciting at this point. Critical thinkers are kind of shut down. It's not, if you want to compete against something someone said in the class or have a different rule set that you created in your mind, it can't even get flushed out because the way these things are moving now, it's just like, okay, recite what you want me to recite and let me move on.
That's split in half nationally now. Literally, career tech taking 50% and college bound the other 50%. And what's happening is it's choking colleges, some need to be choked, and building career focus.
Do state universities, Abby, still have matriculation agreements with public high schools?
I don't know. I mean, I have a lot to say with respect to this. I never had a problem with the fact that, John Huntsman's kids got into Penn, so we built this, fabulous building and campus for Wharton. There's no skin off the university's back to take a couple kids in, and they got this massive donation from Huntsman. I don't know. That's how universities got built and buildings got built. Traditionally, go walk on these campuses and see the names on the buildings and, the families and the legacy families that contributed. I know everyone's going to say this is horrible what I'm saying or completely unpopular, but it's really, at least on the East Coast with so many of the universities, it was, the heart of the the buildings and the endowments on the chairs of the departments and families that donated them. I think there is a difference with foreign governments and what we're seeing and what like Virginia Fox's committee has been able to sort of unravel. And I forget the bill in the House. I think it became law. Someone can correct me with respect to the disclosures from foreign governments into universities and how much they can contribute. And there's like some kind of threshold where a certain amount of money contributed in has to be disclosed where its sources are from. But
yeah,
I don't know. Did that become law? I know I saw the proposed legislation. I don't know if it happened.
That's true for lobbyists. I don't know if that's true for donors of universities, right?
It was put together through, Virginia Fox's committee, which is Elise Stefanik is on that was doing a lot of the hearings with the university presidents on the anti-Semitism. They were also pushing to find out, and a lot had to do with the Qatari money that was coming in and the sources of the money. I have to check if it actually got signed into law. But I think that's important. But I don't know. I mean, you can all jump on me for this, but I really never had a problem with the donations from legacy families onto campuses and building buildings there.
I don't have a problem with that either, Abby. My whole thing was like the whole Mark Singer case. The fact that, Becky from Full House.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous.
Okay,
the fact
that became like an institute, like what he was doing, he made a whole business out of it, right? Okay.
Yeah, and recently the judge allowed him to return back to his business practices as long as he discloses his past, criminal history in over the course of his business practices. So I feel like it was just fake outrage. I feel like people who have the money to be able to find a back door, given a system that has a thumb on the scale against American students, I don't find a problem with it.
So, hold on, Abby. The legacy admission thing, I remember hearing a lot of people, complaining about this and saying how it's unfair. I think if a university wants to set up rules where their admission standards are for height, or if they want their admission standards to be based on, your ability to take a standardized test, or your ability to pay or be accepted, it comes from, legacy members, or you found a loan to get in. The only thing that I would like to see applied is that if they can't pass whatever standardized application process you have, for example, if you're going to let the legacy student in and they couldn't pass the exam, I think that's a fucking big problem. I think that level of nepotism is a problem, but you have to balance that with the fact that if you made a hard and fast rule, where are you going to get the funding? Because first and foremost, my goal would be to make sure that the government doesn't fund these universities at all. And if the government, and if I get my way and the government doesn't fund it, the universities are going to have to fund it somehow, some way. And I don't think that if the government's not backing these loans, then you're probably going to have to rely more on legacy. And so I wouldn't want to send my kid to a school that practices nepotism to that level. If they would allow students in that couldn't get in on their own, I think that's a huge fucking problem. But I also think that's a problem for me. But I don't think that they should be disallowed from setting their own rules.
I 100% agree with it. So I know with legacy, they still have, definitely with the Ivies, they still have to reach a very high minimum on their SAT scores and their cumulative averages. There is a very high bar. There's, by the way, a high bar for athletes at the Ivy level. They can't take a dumb athlete in there. And by the way, they have to survive the university. So they still, they're getting into Princeton. They got to stay in and get through those classes. And these, Chris, a lot of these schools have classes that are the easy ones to take, but they still have to matriculate through for 4 years. So I 100% agree with you. But, you know, these like sports centers and, you know, like the what do you call it, the aquatic centers, the swimming pools and these different facilities on campuses, especially on the sports, get built by alumni. It gets built by alumni money. I mean, it's not, except maybe if you're at, I don't know, I mean, maybe a really rich school has it, but most of these campuses, especially stuff like sports, so you're going to have to rely on that, and you're going to have to rely on the goodwill of the alumni, and I 100% agree with you. But if there's, you know, there's got to be a minimum, and I think there is. I mean, at least I know with, you know, the one Ivy where my kid was, and the kid was, you know, had family legacy, but also, and by the way, got in because of, you know, her own merits in sports also, but had to have a very high, I mean, it had to be extremely high. They wouldn't even look at it if it wasn't. So I think it does exist. I mean, I can't speak for all the schools, but I know with some of them, at least at that level.
I think it's unfair to introduce what happens after they get in. I think it's unfair to introduce a particular building that's, you know, a quarter of a mile away that somebody built for lacrosse. The thing is, if you're promoting, hey, this is what the rule is while we use taxpayer money. Your money, my money, her money, they money. This is what the rule is. So what happens after can't be the argument. The lacrosse thing that somebody built can't be the argument because